everyone, and welcome to day 3 of Essential Oils for the Family and helping you with your emotions. I am so delighted with the response that these videos are getting, and the connection that we're having, and the dialogue that we're creating with and around essential oils and emotions. Importantly, this is something that's very dear to my heart, something that I'm very passionate about. And I want to bring as much awareness and as much insight so that we can support each other, support ourselves, and support our little ones and our families as we go along. And today, the aim for today's video is, well, in fact, the entire aim for all of this for me, all of the reason that I do my inner work, all the reason I help my son have a language around his emotions and what he's doing in his world and how to navigate all of that, is because at my core, I want me to be able to have deep, lasting connections with people, and to create a language around that. That means that we can have that kind of dialogue. Then I also want him to be able to have the language in order for him to create really good, deep, and meaningful connections with other people as well. If any of this is resonating as I'm talking, please put a comment in the chat so I can see that this is something that means and matters to you too. And I also want to have a deep, lasting relationship with my son. This is an important thing for me, to create opportunity for emotional connection. And it's something that many of us, as we've been growing up, haven't had a lot of access to. We haven't had a lot of opportunity to have that experience as we were growing up. And so these are new skills. Not only do we have a desire to be there and support our children and our families and also our relationships, like, I really want to create deep, meaningful relationships with my partner as well. And so all of this together means that we are working on creating and uncovering what it means for us to have this kind of relationship with ourselves, first and foremost, and then with each other. Today's topic is about anger, and anger as its broadest topic, as its overarching theme, is something that, okay, I'm going to change that and ask you in a different way. Tell me how you view anger. How do you view anger? How does that show up for you? How do you feel when somebody expresses anger in your presence? And how do you feel when you have anger, when you feel anger? Do you express it? Do you keep it in? Do you express it outwardly? What are your coping mechanisms? What are your ways of relating with anger? And what happens when your children show anger? What happens when they come to you and they're expressing this kind of intense feeling? What do you do with that? These are really important questions for uncovering and figuring out what we do next with these type of really big emotions. Because for many of us, anger, especially for women, but also for men, it's been distorted. It's a very sticky subject. It's a subject that not a lot of people want to talk about. And if they do, you kind of get into this. There's a lot of pathology, emotional pathology, that goes into anger. It's been distorted very, very many times. And so there is what's known as an anger that is absolutely just and valid. And that has got really mixed up with all of the other kinds. That is an sort of a twisted emotional reaction to an experience that we're having that we don't know how to express in any other way. Does that make sense? So I want to explore that a bit today. And I want to bring anger back into its most proper form. I want us to create truth and alignment with what real, beautiful anger and how powerful it can be. Because at the back of a lot of this emotion when we're talking about anger is this feeling of it's not okay to have that experience. It's not okay. It's very, very judged. Anybody that's expressing any form of anger automatically should feel shame, is the dialogue that we're experiencing. And it can be either some anger can be something that can be really enabling, really expanding and transformative and useful, or it can be disabling. And at the moment, society views anger in many, many ways as a completely disabling experience, something that shouldn't be happening. You repress it in, or you find other ways of pouring it out, but it's really distorted. Let me know if this resonates with you, and if if you've had any experience of that. If you type it in the comments, I'll be able to see. And anger in its most beautiful form, anger in its most aligned form, is when you're saying to yourself, this is wrong. There's something in this isn't okay. I'm not happy with this. And how we position ourselves in that next step is what matters. So as children, what happens is if you're having an emotional reaction, often we have these exaggerated experiences of emotion as children because we haven't learnt any sort of finesse in that. So it's upfront and personal, it's close up, and it's there for everyone to see. So often when a child is angry, is because there's something that isn't right in their world that they're trying to express, and often don't have any other tools in order to say it. And so they're showing you as openly and as visibly as possible that something isn't right in their world. And this is an uncomfortable conversation to have. It does take a certain amount of ownership and neutrality as a parent to kind of really sit with your child and say, and either analyze and talk to them if they haven't got the words to describe it, or create a dialogue with them that says what's going on. Because sometimes anger can be a form of learnt helplessness. So when a child is really angry and they are repeatedly angry, it can be because they are being shut down in some way, somehow. So whether the parent is saying, um, don't do this because I can't deal with your emotional outburst right now, so shut it down and then we will deal with it when you're calm, or not. So there's that. I remember as a child myself that if I had an emotional outburst, it was always in relationship to how much space was this emotional outburst taking up, and was there enough space energetically for me to have that experience. If there wasn't, then I already felt like it was drawing in on myself, like I wasn't allowed to express it outwardly, so I had to come inwardly. And instead of it being a blame or a judgment or something that I was saying out into the world, it was turned in on myself. And I would create a dialogue that I wasn't okay, that I wasn't enough, that there wasn't, I was wrong or shameful for having this experience. It wasn't okay. So before I jump into that a little bit more, I want to talk about there's three main ways that anger can show up. And the first is when anger is explosive and it's up and out. And that's actually in its most cleanest form is how it should come up and out, is a release of energy. It's a release of emotion. How you release it and where you release it, that's important. But it wants to get discharged. It's like it's got to a point where it's built up, built up, built up, built up. And then it needs to be released out of the body. Otherwise, it stays in there stagnant, holding on to places and spaces, and can make your jaw tight and your shoulders tight. And maybe the passive aggressiveness can come in and you feel bitterness and resentfulness. And I mean, these are what happens after years and years and years of having this experience. But imagine like there's a seed that's growing in the soil and it wants to push through the soil and up and out. It's that experience of breaking through the soil and coming up and out, which is really profound when it comes to anger. So if it comes up and out and we find healthy ways to express it, that's really healthy, because then the person who's having that experience can say, okay, this is how this is going for me, and have a right relationship to anger. If when it's coming up and out, it gets cut off, shut down, knocked out, or the boundaries that you have within yourself, you're saying, I will and won't allow this, and then somebody says to you, well, I'm going to, normally it's unverbally, I'm going to travel over your boundaries, I'm going to go over your boundaries repeatedly, over and over and over again, then the anger that comes up is misplaced. It's a form of helplessness and hopelessness, and it wants to be expressed, but it's being cut off, because and there's nowhere for it to go. That's when it starts to fester inside. That's when it starts to become almost disordered, misaligned, um, and almost a pressure cooker. It's creating a pressure cooker inside. And over time, the more the boundaries get overlooked, or more that you get knocked down, or things like that. A very common phrase is that goes on subconsciously is, I can't be myself. I'm not allowed to be myself. Um, I'm not allowed to be what I want to be. I'm not allowed to express myself in the way that I want to express myself. I'm not allowed to do what I want to do. And that can create this kind of pressure cooker experience. Uh, and that's very typical. There's lots of us who grew up with that kind of overlay that says, no, you're not allowed. No, don't do that. No, don't be you. Definitely, definitely don't be you. That's not okay. You're not okay. And women, stay small, stay below the radar. Don't do anything that you shouldn't be doing. Um, be quiet, be kind, be sweet, be loving, be nurturing. And that can create a self-hating pressure cooker, which brings me on to point two, where the anger wants to come up and out, and yet kind of gets brought back in on itself. So it's creating this loop where it comes back in. And that's when you start blaming or believing that there's something wrong with you. And you're creating this kind of unhealthy loop, because it's not had a chance to discharge. Um, And it can be that subconsciously the child or the adult, when they were growing up, had when they were angry, that the parent basically was saying, in some way, you cannot show this emotion. I cannot deal with your emotion right now. So they bring it back into themselves. And then there can also be this dynamic with the passiveness and control. So one person, normally the caregiver, has more control over the other one. So then you start getting into this victim, victimizer, narcissist, empath dynamic in its most extreme form. And that's when the empath, generally, this is a generalization, the empath will then bring that energy back in on themselves, the anger, and they direct it back to themselves. And that's why you get so many empaths thinking, what's wrong with me? What have I done? I hate myself. I'm not good enough. I shouldn't be here. There's not enough space in this world for me. I don't fit in. All those kind of things. So it's kind of a coming in on yourself as a byproduct of this external control energy that's coming towards you. And it can make you very sarcastic. It can close down your heart. A lot of these things, these pathologies, close down your heart. And we can see, so that's why we have to be really aware of our own pathologies as parents when we want to create healthy anger and expression for our children. It is to give them the space to be able to explore this, but also give ourselves the space to be able to explore this, right? We want to be able to know how we can express our anger healthily and without shame or judgment. And often we need to work on that and rumble with that first before we then role model that for our children. Um, and number three is when we automatically believe that the anger, there's something within ourselves that means that we automatically bring the anger in back on ourselves. Like automatically, we believe that anger is not okay. That's without any external influence. Sometimes just the way that we're made automatically believes that this anger isn't okay, isn't justified. And so we bring it back in on ourselves. And it's not allowed. That's the overarching impression. Even if your parents were like, yes, express it, it's okay. There's some part of you that goes, no, this isn't okay. I'm not allowed to have this experience. And so it draws back in on yourself. Um, and what's really tricky with that is it creates this whole idea of hesitation, of self-doubt, of not trusting ourselves, feeling always like you want to do something but holding yourself back, bringing yourself back in on yourself for fear of something, some kind of explosion, some kind of expression that doesn't feel good. So you're constantly wanting to move forward. Like there's a part of you that wants to move forward, but always reining yourself back in, just in case it gets too much or too loud or too extreme or too emotional. Um, and with all of these, what we end up doing is squashing our desires. And that's really key for me, because for me as a parent, what I want to do is create an opportunity for my son to explore what's really in his heart to create in this lifetime. What does he desire to do? What in his highest alignment are the things that will bring him joy and bring him excitement and peace and just to explore his creativity and his gifts that he's here to express at this time. Yet, if you're constantly dealing with the fear of expression through the anger, then you will stop the other forms of expression that you have that go along with this. So constantly coming in on yourself. So we've got the one that comes up and out and then gets blocked. We get the one that wants to come out and then gets cut off and then comes back in. And then we've got the automatic one that comes back in on itself through not believing that you're not allowed to actually express any, you could say any form of emotion unless it's positivity. And that's where a lot of spiritual bypassing can come in as well in each one of these segments and sections, because at some point you're saying no, these negative emotions are not allowed. What I want to encourage is healthy expression of all emotion, all of it, because it all has place. Some of the most revolutionary experiences in society and within our homes and within ourselves happen because at some point become angry. We're like, no, I will not stand for this anymore. No, this isn't okay. And if we give our children the ability to be able to say, no, this isn't okay, an agent of change, an authority for themselves, then what we're doing is creating mass empowerment for our children to be able to make changes that they see fit within this current society and environment, which I think is really key, even if it's just for themselves and within their society, within their community, or further out, you know. But I want to give our children tools. I want us to have the tools to be able to empower our children. I want us to feel empowered first and foremost. So it goes back to the question that I asked you right at the beginning. What is your relationship to your anger? What is your relationship to other people's anger? What is your relationship to when your child expresses anger? And what do you do about it? What comes up for you? Let's explore it. As an adult, one of the most profound things you can do is start on your inner child healing journey. If you haven't done any of that before, then I have a course on Teachable that you can start and exploring that journey. If you have, then really start to create a direct communication with your inner child that says, this is when they express to you, this is what I want and what I want to say and how I want to say it, and you find a healthy outlet to be able to do that. There's many different ways that we can support ourselves and our families with anger. Many. Please explore, please search, please research. There's lots and lots of different ways. What I want to bring is awareness. The first step is awareness. The first step is a contemplation of what we can do. And then from there, we have choice. I've mentioned this before. When we have awareness, we have choice. And when we have choice, we have possibility for empowerment, liberation, freedom, and choosing something different for ourselves and for our children. And if there was one thing, just one thing, for me, it would be to create a next generation of children who do not have to relearn what empowerment means, who release their attachment to helplessness and hopelessness and know that they have that deep sense of being able to have agency over themselves and their decisions and their bodies and their thoughts, and create a really positive outcome for themselves. That they are resilient, that they know what to do with themselves, that they know how to navigate these difficult emotional terrains, so that whatever happens, they know that they're going to be okay. That they know that they're going to be okay. That is so powerful. I didn't know that for a really long time. And I think these tools are so fundamental in order to help our children grow and thrive in today's society, especially the sensitive ones. So the oil of today, there's one oil. The oil of today is Blue Tansy. Blue Tansy is actually called the bringer of play, very closely linked in some ways to wild orange, except this Blue Tansy has so much depth, so much richness and depth, and it's a bright blue color. I'm just going to show you. Can you see that dark blue on the top there? That's the color. Let's see if I can, that's the color of it. It's actually a yellow flower, but the way that it's distilled, just like blue chamomile and yarrow, sorry, that is how it's the same thing. It's that blue element that is antiviral, anti-inflammatory, and anti-allergenic. It's really powerful, really powerful. And what it does is, it's like a fire hydrant. It's like a water on this fire. It comes in and it soothes and it calms and it settles and it releases that energy. It creates a flow where the anger can be very stagnant when it keeps coming back in on itself. Blue Tansy helps to bring it up and out. And you don't have to overthink this. It doesn't have to be a difficult relationship with Blue Tansy. Just, you can either put it in the diffuser, a couple of drops, that's fine. Put it in your bath, soak in it with the Epsom salts. That's really powerful, especially when you're feeling angry or your child is having a really intense time. Put it in the bath. Or other places I like to do is to, on the body, is to put it in your heart, in the palm of your hand with some fractionated coconut oil or other carrier oil of your choice. And then I like to rub it over both hands and then put one hand on my heart and one hand on my womb space. And it's the same places for children, for boys as well as girls. And you can just hold it there and breathe. And what you can start to feel is the energy of the Blue Tansy dispersing within the body, creating space, creating almost like a weaving up through these stagnant, tight and sticky places and unwinding them, opening them up, unsticking them so that they can breathe again. It's really powerful. Let's see. And massage is really lovely. The skin on skin contact You know, if you, as long as there's not a feeling of violation of boundaries that's going on for your child, because if they do, they might want to. Another sign is that they might actually want to be away from you when they're angry. They might not want to cuddle you. Um, but if that's not the case, then a massage over the shoulders, over the back of the, especially around the back of the heart, the middle of the spine is really powerful. And just along the spine, across the shoulders and down the arms is really, really beautiful. There's a lot to cover for anger. There's a lot of pathology. There's a lot of stickiness, like I said at the beginning of this video, that really does stop us from being able to release anger in its most beautiful and positive way. And if the last thing I want to say about this is, please, as a parent, if you feel that you have any sort of victim mentality, anything that feels like you yourself feel helpless and hopeless, and that you're passing that on to your children, obviously not with awareness, because no parent wants to do that with awareness. But if that is the case and your child is reacting to that, then just know that this is them helping you break that cycle. Okay, they are highlighting something to you to bring this to your awareness, to stop and end the ancestral karma that is being passed down from generation and generation. They're not just trying to be obnoxious, they're not just trying to ruin your day or make your life more difficult. They are actively bringing things to the surface that need your awareness and your attention. And dare I say, with hindsight, it's a gift. Although it doesn't always feel like that in the moment, it can feel like you're being pressure cooked up to your limit. And I totally understand. With all of this, we are all doing our best. And with more awareness and with more insight, we can continue to expand and grow and create healthier and deeper communications and connections with each other. And it's going to be delightful. It is delightful. And I am excited to see where all this goes. So I hope you found that video useful. Please share in the comments what you think, how this is landing for you. And I will be back tomorrow with day 4. In the meantime, thank you for joining. And I celebrate each one of you for being here right now, exploring your emotions, exploring these oils together. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a lovely day.